think last year the hardest thing for me was miscarriage, because I felt like God told me I was healed and I lost this baby. And I don't know what's wrong with me. And I don't know why I lost this baby. I don't know what's wrong. And I really, really thought it was a girl. I really want a little girl. But I, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why it happened. And people were saying all the cliche things like, oh, God doesn't make any mistakes. And like, and I don't want to hear that. I feel like it's like people don't mean anything by it, but like when you're in that, it kind of like, it feels like it's kind of dismissing it, like God doesn't make any mistakes. So you're telling me that my baby had to die? Is that what you're telling me? Briana is a mom, sister, daughter, an entrepreneur, life coach, author, all the things. But I would say one thing is an overcomer. That is just something that's always been part of my life. Like I've overcame everything that's ever been thrown at me. I won't say I had a rough childhood, but it was difficult navigating it for me because I'm different than my parents. My parents, like I said, both my parents are military and both of them come from broken homes. So being the child of parents who are still together, but they both come from broken homes and they're both military, so they both went into the military straight out of high school. And nobody on my mom's side ever graduated from college. So it was just kind of hard for me trying to figure out what I want to do. But psychology came naturally. I knew as a child, for whatever reason, people felt comfortable talking to me, and I didn't know why. And I'm like, I don't know why people feel comfortable talking to me. It sounds like something a counselor would do, and that's what I went to school for, to be a counselor. But I just didn't have a lot of different career paths in front of me. It was either going to the military or going to college. What am I going to college for? I don't really know. I didn't have like doctor friends or lawyer friends or anything. I have a very blah or like nonchalant view of a lot of things that happen in my life. And even when it comes to like accomplishments, I'm like, okay, so like I have a hard time with it. So like just this year alone, this year I wrote a devotional. I became a biblical life coach. I got my certification in May. I am a founding member of a sorority, Zeta Nu Alpha Christian Sorority Incorporated. I also was part of an anthology, but I don't know how to acknowledge those things sometimes. Like I went to New York for the anthology book release. We had like a release party or whatever, and it like I was just kind of felt like I was having like an out of body experience. I'm like, the people are clapping for us. Why are they clapping? Like, why are they excited? Because I've worked as an armor bearer so long. I've worked as an assistant. I've worked as all these things where it's about everybody else that I don't know how to celebrate myself sometimes. So like, I literally was at this party like, what is going on? Like, it's for me, it looks like an assignment. It looks like it's like when people like. So I work as an assistant to a lot of people. They ask me to do something, I do it. So with the anthology, that really was an assignment for me because God told me, He said, write the book. And I was like, okay, what book? Write about what? And then it just so happened that Tanika reached out to me. We connected via BCI, Black Christian Influencers. And she said she needed help writing an anthology. God said, that's it. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I know how to write. But I don't even know what she wanted to write about. I have no idea. She literally just said she needs help writing an anthology. That was it. There was no description of what she wanted to write about, nothing. And I told her, I can help you with that. He's told me to start my business, the Enamor Effect, back in 2021. And it's basically teaching people how to heal from trauma. And I've been working on like content and stuff and different things because I work as a social media manager as well. So I know how to create content. And she sent me the prompt for this book, and it literally was like, what is your healing journey? And I was like, that was the first question. And I was like, okay, so this is the assignment. So I went about it as if it was an assignment. And when I completed it, turned it in, that was it. I don't know. It's like, it's difficult trying to like figure out how to celebrate myself as much as I celebrate other people, because I watch people put together these amazing events or these amazing things in their lives, and I'm there to support. I'm literally the support team all the time, and I don't know how to. I think for me, I just the one thing that I always make sure I do is I rest. If I don't celebrate myself, if I do nothing, I make sure I rest and I make sure I spend time with my son. And that is about as far as it goes. I don't know. I haven't quite mastered that yet. I guess when it comes to my accomplishments, I don't really sit in those too long. But I also think that when you do sit in those too long, it builds a lot of arrogance for some people, and I've never been that. And so maybe that's why I don't. Mm-hmm. So when I graduated from college, from undergrad, the next natural thing for me to do, because I knew I was not, like, I'm not going back to Augusta. I'm not doing that. Like, that was never an option for me. Like, going back to Augusta was not an option. But the next best thing, where I still had like a security, some like little safety net for I guess, was Tallahassee, because Tallahassee's only like an hour and 15 minutes, hour 30 minutes from Valdosta. I moved there in July. I had a job. I started my job in September, the first week of September. My parents were willing to help me with like 3 months of, my bills and stuff. But thank God I graduated right before then. So I had a lot of graduation money, and then my birthday's in August, so I had a lot of money coming in for my birthday too. So it took care of me. God took care of me in that situation. And I know there's times when people graduate from college, it's hard finding a job. I found a job within basically 30 days. I started in September, but I got hired in August. I moved in that apartment July 30th or 31st, somewhere at the end of the month. And by middle of August, I knew that I was going to be starting work in September. So, and it wasn't the best job. It wasn't. It was horrible, but it was enough for me. I was able to, sustain myself. I might not have been able to do everything that I wanted to do, like travel and buy a new car and all the things, but me and my little Honda Accord was fine. I had food to eat. I had a washer and dryer in my apartment, so I didn't have to pay for a laundromat. I was okay. I was okay. Because I worked for the state, I got free tuition for any state college. So FAMU was also in Tallahassee, and I was like, I've always wanted to go to FAMU since I was in like 9th or 10th grade. I wanted to go to FAMU. I knew I wanted to go to FAMU, and I went. And Easter 2015. I want to say it was in March that year. It was like March 5th or something. I took a pregnancy test and it came back positive. And I was like, I have literally been on my own for 6 months and I'm pregnant. What do I do? Now, another factor that goes into that is that I had just changed my birth controls a month before. And I've been on birth control at that time since I was 15. My mom put me in birth control early because a lot of women in my family got pregnant very early. I have cousins who had kids 14, 15. I have a second cousin who had a baby at 13, and she's 21 now. But it happens. It happens. My mom just didn't want that to happen to me, so she put me in birth control. And it just so happened that I changed my birth control in February. Now, was I sexually active? Yes. Should I have been? No, shouldn't have. Not especially not with that person. And all I know, I had never missed a period in my life, and all of a sudden, I missed my period. I'm having all these symptoms. I can't stop eating. I'm sleeping like crazy. Like the day that I took that test, I came home. We got out of church at like 1. I slept till 9 o'clock that night. And I got up, went to the store, got a pregnancy test, took the test, and before I could even wash my hands, it came back positive. I went to the doctor, they didn't see nothing. They were like, there's nothing here. I'm like, you had a positive test, but there's nothing here. And I'm like, well, you're a doctor. You tell me what's going on. You asking me, I'm asking you. You the medical professional. Like, you went to school for this. I didn't. I wanted to stay far away from the medical field. So as this is going along, they still have no answers. They have no answers for why I'm still missing. I've never missed a period a day in my life. To this day, that was the only time I've ever missed a period. And when I got pregnant with my son, and when I was pregnant last year, but I've never missed a period ever. As many years I've been on birth control, I've never missed a period. And for 8 months, I went without a period and was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And keep in mind, it took me all 4 years of college to gain 30 pounds. And really, I didn't gain that weight till like my junior year. I gained like 10 pounds my junior year, and then I gained the rest before my senior year. But I still was at the time like 160 pounds wearing my size 4. So I've always been small. And I'm literally wearing maternity clothes because I've gotten so big that I had like within a matter of 8 months. And nobody has an explanation on what is going on. Like, they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. You're asking me if I'm okay or if I did anything different. And I'm telling you, the only thing I did different, I changed my birth control in February. I had sex in March. I had sex in February. Found out I had a pregnancy test in March. And I had missed my period. And it came back positive. No explanation. And so they were like, well, we're going to keep treating it like a pregnancy just in case, because it was very unusual. Like, I literally looked pregnant. Like, very pregnant. Like, it was, I couldn't hide it type of big. And like I said, I've always been small. I danced, I stepped, I did all these things growing up. I was very active. And even still, I was still active back then. I just was big. And at that moment, I was big. I stopped, when I found out that, I had the pregnancy test, I stopped doing as much just in case. I don't want to harm myself or the baby. So they told me I probably would have been due around January. And right around that time, they told me to go to an endocrinologist. I did. They did a bunch of tests. It came back that I had PCOS. I never heard of PCOS a day in my life. It's called polycystic ovarian syndrome. And basically, what happened was my body hormones were all out of whack. And it caused me to have so many cysts on my ovaries that it made me look pregnant. And I've never heard of this a day in my life. I do know my family, they have history of like reproductive issues, but a lot of my mom had a hysterectomy when she was 40. My aunt, she had a hysterectomy when she was 40. My sister, who's my cousin, she had a hysterectomy on her 28th birthday. My sister has very, very bad periods. Like my actual younger sister, she has really, really bad periods. And I never heard of PCOS ever. When I moved, I ended up moving back to Augusta because I had like a mental break because my coworkers threw me a baby shower. I had this room full of babies up in the baby. And not only that, I was told that I probably wouldn't. I was told that I would not be able to have children on my own. I was told that I would have to go through IVF. I was going to have to go through a surrogate. I was going to have to be on all this medication just to have a baby. And the only way to fix what was going on with me was go back on birth control again. And I said, I'm not doing that. That makes no sense. If you're telling me, and I'm telling you that birth control is what caused this, and you're telling me to get back on birth control, I'm not doing that. I'm not. So April 30th, I moved back home. I put in an FMLA for my job, and I moved back home. And the first place I went to was COP. That is my church home now, Cathedral of Praise. Back then we were Kojic. We're not Kojic anymore, but that was the first place I went to. I didn't even unpack my car. My car was still full of my bags, my clothes, everything was there. It was just enough room for me to sit in the driver's seat and get there. And that's where I went. I went there and I stayed there. I got scared because my now elect lady, I think I had been there for like 3 weeks. She said, "You're almost a member now," and I panicked and I was like, "I don't want to be a member of the wrong church ever again." Because even with the ministry I was part of before, I knew that I was supposed to have left when I moved to Tallahassee, and I didn't. And I was like, I'm not going to ever be in the wrong ministry ever again in my life. I'm not going to play with my life like that. I'm not going to play with my spiritual life like that. I'm not doing that. Not doing that. And that October, I went back. because I've been trying to find another church home, and I was like, I really like CLP, but I'm scared. So I went back in October, and my bishop, he's my bishop now. He was my pastor back then. He said he stopped. He didn't remember me from back when I came in April, and he said, God wants to do something miraculous in your body. So I see you being frustrated. And at this time, I had lost probably about 50 pounds. I stopped taking birth control and I was going to the gym every day, Monday through Friday. I lost all the weight. And by the time I came back to CLP, that you couldn't tell that that's what my body had went through. So when he stopped and he said that, I knew it wasn't because it wasn't what I looked like, because I didn't look pregnant at all. So I see you being frustrated in your body and frustrated with your situation, because of course I didn't want to move back to Augusta. So I went through a deep depression when I moved back. And that was the frustration that he was talking about. But he said, God's going to do something miraculous in your body. I don't know what it is. I don't really understand it, but he's going to do something miraculous. That was 2016, October 2016. By August 2017, by my 25th birthday in August, I didn't have PCOS anymore. I didn't take any birth control. And I tell people all the time, I lost the weight. I lost the spiritual weight. I lost the physical weight. I lost the mental weight, because I was living with my parents and I didn't have to have the financial responsibility that was stressing me out. Because with PCOS, one of the main things is your cortisol levels are high. One main reason your cortisol levels are high is stress. What are you doing that's stressing you out? Who are you around that's stressing you out? What do you need that's stressing you out? And I literally had to figure that out. So for me, it was dead on trying to be accepted by somebody that wasn't accepting of themselves, or what their situation was, or who they're around. Or being around insecure people makes you very it makes you want to be accepted so much more. It's like, but when you realize that they're that insecure, it's like, it sucks, because they can't accept me because they can't accept them. I eventually ended up moving out because me and my mom just couldn't. We weren't seeing eye to eye, because a lot of things happened in this situation when I was diagnosed with PCOS that she didn't know about regarding other people, and she just refused to believe it. And I was like, I'm not going to stress myself out to make you believe that. I'm not going to, whatever you believe is on you. It's not my job to change your mind. So I stopped doing a lot of those things. I did a lot of mental work. It just, for somebody who never had to go to the gym, to have to be in the gym every day, that was a lot for me. I never had to go to the gym ever in my life. I never had to go to the gym. So that's where it started. And then when I started really going, when I realized what was, I looked into cortisol levels and what levels are higher, being like your testosterone levels being higher as a woman. What does that mean, or what does that come from? And that comes from being hyper independent, and that's what I've always been. I'll figure it out. I've never been the one to ask for help. I'll figure it out every single time. Even now, I was going through something, and my parents were like, "Why didn't you say something?" I was like, "I'm gonna figure it out." I'd figure it out. But yeah, that's what PCOS. That was what it was. Finding out the triggers and handling that. Augusta is a sore spot for me. It's home, but when I got here, the reason why I went into such a deep depression was because in a matter of like 3 miles of Tobacco Road, I've been shot at. I got into a car accident that should have killed me. I was shot at. A bullet scraped the top of my car. A little Honda Accord. I had the Honda Accord up until I had my son. From the time I was in high school all the way till I had my son. So it's a long time. Hondas last forever. Get you one. It was an 06 Honda Accord, but a bullet scraped the top of my car when I was at a party, because we had a shootout at a party and I was there. My car was on the news, and my mama saw it. So, ain't that your car? No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I wasn't there. No. You should. Then you say it. Nope. Mm-mm. Knowing I was lying, I'm like, no, I wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about. I was at so and so house. Like, but yeah, I just, it was a reminder of death because, like I said, within this, I don't even know if it was 3 miles. It literally, there's a community center where the party was at that the bullet scraped my car. Literally, like, it's like the community center, and there's 2 neighborhoods. In the middle of the second neighborhood, there, like on the outside, there's a tree. My car, I was driving my parents' Volvo at the time. I fell asleep driving, and the car stopped right before it got to the tree. If I would have hit the tree, because I was so small at the time, it would have killed me. Like, I literally, it was maybe 2 inches between the car and the tree. Like, if I would have hit that tree at all, because I was maybe 115 pounds, it would have killed me from impact because it was so big. That was there. I almost got shot in my childhood neighborhood. I went through a lot of depression and tried to commit suicide. And I just didn't want to be here. I was like, I don't want to be that. Augusta was a sore spot for that reason, but I had to come back here. And then I left again. And I had to come back again. I'm like, you know what, God, if that's what you want me to be, I'll be here. I'll stay here this time. Well, that's why I said I'm comfortable here now, because this is where I am. And I'm okay. I had to heal from that stuff. So yeah, it was a lot. When I came back, I was not here to stay. I came to visit my church. My job, I was working for the Department of Revenue in Tallahassee, and we went home for COVID in 2020. So 2021, I found out that I was pregnant with my son, and that was interesting to me because I had to go back to the same place, the same doctor that told me I couldn't have kids in Tallahassee. I had to go back to her. And I remember when I first went in, they were like, "Didn't we see you in like 2015? You had like that crazy situation." I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "And you didn't have a baby, right?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." And they were like, "And you're here again?" And so I was already in my mind like, "Y'all can go ahead and tell me I'm not pregnant. I'm going through PCOS again." I'm like, I don't want to go through this again. I hadn't even told my son's father that I was pregnant because I needed to see for myself that this is really happening before I stress anybody else out and get anybody else involved. And sure enough, I was pregnant. So I got really homesick during the pregnancy. So I went home. I was supposed to be home for like a week, and I'll be here for 2 weeks. Or and it just so happened this time. I don't even know why I was here. Oh, that's what it was. My church, my elect lady, she called me and said, "I want you to come to the women's retreat because we have a women's retreat every December." And she wanted me to come. And she's like, "I think it'd be good for you to come before you have the baby," because I was doing February of 2022. So this is the first week of December that we go on the trip. We come back, and I'm still like, I don't want to go back to Tallahassee yet. And something kept telling me not to go back. As a matter of fact, a week later, after we came back, me and my sister drove down to Tallahassee. My sister lived here at the time. I had her drive me down in her car to Tallahassee, and we stayed in my apartment because I still had my apartment, was still paying rent. And we went to my appointment, that next day, and then we drove back. 2 days later, I went to labor with my son here in Augusta. And it's crazy because had I been in Tallahassee, I would have been by myself because I had to stop dealing with my family that was down there because it was a lot. It was a lot of drama. It was a lot of, family go therapist now. But I'm the kind of person, I'll walk away and I don't care. I'm like, y'all can have it over there. If I see you, I see you. But you don't really exist to me at this moment. I live in my world. So even though they were right there, I still would have, I felt I was going to be there by myself because I didn't feel comfortable calling them. So I came, I was here, had him here. I had just started, the day before we went on the women's retreat, I had just started working I had got a promotion at my job and was making the most money I ever made in my life. And sure enough, he came a week later and he's in NICU for 6 weeks. So, and I couldn't drive. So had I been in Tallahassee, I wouldn't be able to see my baby for 2 weeks. I think they told me not to drive. I did it anyway, but that's neither here or there. But yeah, he was in NICU for 6 weeks. I was at the hospital every day he was there except for one, and that was the one day I went down to Tallahassee, packed up my whole apartment, and moved back here. And I had all the support I needed here. Everything I needed was here. His dad was here. My parents were here. His dad's family was here at the time. My church home was here. I felt okay. And so God kept showing me like different things. He would like open these doors for me that I didn't ask for. Like I applied for a internship with Black Women in Media, and in 2025, I have been working with her since 2022. Paid, not an unpaid internship. She's introduced me to Judith Jock is her name. She's introduced me to so many people that will, outside of her, even if they don't get along with her, they'll call me like, I need your work. They're in New York. They're in, up north somewhere, and they calling little old me down here in Augusta, Georgia, to get something for them, and they'll pay me for it. And that was literally what was keeping me, like my social media management work or my virtual assistant work or whatever I was doing, part time just to make ends meet in Tallahassee, is what was keeping me and my son. I left my son's father because of domestic violence, and it just so happened the way that it happened was nobody but God. Like I watch a lot of podcasts, and R&B Money is my favorite. That is by far my favorite podcast or channel on YouTube, whatever, because they have like two. They have R&B Money, and then now they have This Week in R&B. I love Tank. I absolutely love Tank. Me and Tank have Bishop Todd Hall in common. Bishop Todd Hall is my church's covering. Bishop Todd Hall is also the person that prophesied to Tank that he was going to make it in the industry. And he's like, it's not going to be in church. It's not going to be here. It's going to be out there. And he absolutely was right. Bishop Hall is also the one that prophesied to Kiara Sheard about her baby. Bishop Hall recently, I saw a video, I think 2 days ago. I forgot her name. Todd Hall wrote down a prophecy for her that she was going to meet Oprah. By a week later, she met Oprah and was working on a show with Oprah. So I take those people very seriously because I'm like, you believe the same God that I do. And if that man can tell you this, and you believe him, I can trust you because I believe the God in him. I'm scared of him, terrified of him, but I believe the God in him. I do. He just scares me. His accuracy scares me. I respect it, but it's scary to me. Because even when he doesn't want to prophesy to people, he still does it. And that happened with me, like September-ish, 2 years ago. But he told me I was going to be a millionaire. He didn't want to tell me because he said on whoever's birthday is August the 6th. That's me. He said, you can stand up and scream. I didn't want to because I'm not that person to stand up and scream. I'm not going to do that. So I was like, I stood up and was like, And he was like, I'm not going to tell you now because you didn't want to listen. He's like, you're not offended by me. You're offended with yourself because you didn't do what you wanted to do, but God is still going to do it for you anyway. And he's like, I'm going to come back to you later. And he was like, who's Briana? Like, who is Briana? Like, he went on trying to go on to somebody else. But he goes, who's Briana? Like, who is she? Like, he's like, no, I don't. He's like, last name is Brown. Who is it? And I was like, that's me. He was like, it's you? And I was like, yes. And he was like, God's going to make you a millionaire. And I was like, me? And I'm like, I'm barely getting by right now. Like, I don't like, even right now, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work. But like I said, I also started watching R&B Money, and they discussed, his Tank's story, how he used to play for Todd Hall and how he prophesied to him. Like, this is an R&B podcast that's dealing with this stuff very heavily. And so I took a liking to Jay Valentine. His personality is like hilarious to me. He's like, he's me. But in a man, as a man, like he's very nonchalant and very witty in how he says things about people or whatever, or the way he thinks about things. I'm like, I literally thought about that the same way. But I followed him, and he's not churchy at all. But for whatever reason, I clicked on his story and he said, God doesn't want anybody putting their hands on you. And I was like, why would he say that? I don't know why he would say that, because he don't even, not that he doesn't believe in God, but he's not that type to post God said this or God did this on social media at all. And I have been following him for a while at that time. And I was like, that's odd. But I knew that I needed to see that because I didn't know how I was going to leave. I didn't. I didn't know how I was going to leave my son's father because I was like, I can't make it by myself. I can't tell my parents because he's here at the house he's not supposed to be. And I'm going to lose everything I have if I tell him that he's here. So I need to find people that I can trust that can help me. I was going to call my choir director. She was about to get married at the time. And she also has a very large dog and I'm terrified of dogs. And I was like, I can't call her. I was going to call another girl from my church. She's like my mom at my church, but she has a house full of people. I'm not calling her. She has 2 little boys that are the same age as my son. I'm like, I'm not going to call her. I can't call her. And so by the time I'm going through the list of people in my head, and by the time it got maybe like a week later, as a matter of fact, about a week later, I had a bruise on the back of my arm that was huge. Like it literally covered the whole, all of this. And I was wearing an orange dress and my arms were out and I forgot that the bruise was there. But I felt it because maybe, around that same time, that week before, we had gotten to it and he pushed me. And I had a bruise because I hit the wall and I bruised my arm. And I was like, I need to tell my bishop. I should tell my bishop. And I was like, I don't know how to tell him. I don't know how I'm going to tell him because my bishop don't play by me. My bishop don't play. And I was like, I don't want him to put down Jesus to come save me. I didn't want that. He got kids, he got a wife, he got all that at home. I'm not going to let him do that. So I didn't tell him. A week later, my niece calls me and says, I need to come talk to you. She said, I need to get out the house. She was going through something. She said, I just need to get out of Charlotte. She lives in Charlotte, 2.5 hours away, which is nothing, but she got in the car, came down, and my son's father, I had to pick him up from work because he doesn't have a vehicle. And I picked up my son, we went to Walmart, and then we went to go pick his dad up. My niece is in the back seat. He doesn't know that she's there. He doesn't know that she's in Augusta, but he also doesn't know because his phone wasn't on. So we go to the house, we get some food, all the stuff, whatever. And we're having a good time. And we were outside in the garage talking, and things go left. He starts talking crazy, and it's to the point that my niece is uncomfortable. So she starts recording him. He wasn't physical with me at all during this incident, but the way he was speaking to me, she felt uncomfortable for me. And so she started recording. And she was going to call her mom, but she didn't want to stop recording because it was getting worse. So I go in the house, she goes in the house, she's sitting on the couch. And my son's father comes in, he's like, I need to talk to you. Like, he's very aggressive in how he's speaking to me, like, even in front of her, like, we need to go talk. So I'm like, okay. And while we're in our bedroom talking, and he's making all kind of threats and it's just talking crazy. Like, I'm not here to bash him, but my niece calls her mom. Her mom calls my sister. My biological sister. Like, we got the same mom and same daddy. My sister calls my dad. And she tells him, that he's at the house and that something is wrong. So I come out the room And I look at my phone, and my sister, who's my cousin, but my sister, we've always been very, very close, but she's on the phone, and I'm looking, I'm like, why are you on the phone? And so she said, I need to talk to you. I said, okay. She said, what's going on? I was like, I couldn't say because he was in the house. So I was afraid to say. I said, so I texted her while we're on the phone, and I was like, can you text me? She's like, is he physically and verbally abuses? I said, yes. And she said, your dad is on the way, and I'm gonna let him know. My dad was already on the way. So literally, I sent a message. I hear a door slam outside, and I was like, what's that? And I go outside, my dad is outside. And I'm terrified because I'm like, they're going to kill me because he's in this house he's not supposed to be. And my dad was like, I don't care about that. You're my daughter. I don't care. I understand. And so I don't know what happened in the house. All I know, I was in my parents' car having several anxiety attacks to the point that I could not feel my body anymore. I couldn't move my hands on their own. Like everything felt numb. Like I couldn't move, but I couldn't breathe either. And didn't even have my phone. And he ended up leaving in what I thought was his aunt's car. Come find out later on, it was an Uber. Didn't know, but his aunt has the exact same car. And my niece stayed with me at the house because I was terrified. It was me, her, and my son in the bed. I was terrified because my son is home when this is happening. And the next day he calls me and he starts talking crazy, like making all kinds of threats, everything. And because my niece is sitting next to me, she's recording the phone call on her phone. I didn't know this at the time until we got off the phone because he made a threat to my parents. And I've talked about this earlier. I am very protective. I'm natural. I've always been protective, even the people that don't deserve it. And I'm not saying my parents don't deserve it, but I'm not saying that at all. But like, even with me and my parents not having the best relationship, you make a threat to my parents, we got a problem. I will put Jesus to the side for a moment to protect my parents. That's me. That's always been me. I will be like, Jesus, hold on. I'm the Peter that be slicing off ears. That's me. That is my personality. I'm like, look, Jesus, I know you said don't do this, but I'm gonna repent for it afterwards, right? Like, let me handle this, and then I'll come back. And that's just always been my personality. So when he started making threats, I let him say the threat. I hung up the phone, blocked him, and then he called me from a landline, blocked that number too. Then his aunt texted me and said, hey, this is my new number. And I said, I'm not talking to you. You need to talk to my father. And I gave her my father's number. And she didn't know what was going on. Even mine, I said, he got in a car the night before that looked like his aunt's. It was not his aunt. It was an Uber. So now his aunt is involved. My dad came to the house. He changed the locks on the house. My sister Toya came with a switchblade on her hip, ready to end it all. Because I told you, my family, we all are the same. Like, we fight first, ask questions later. But I had lost myself in that relationship so bad that I didn't even know how to do that anymore. And so my big sister was coming, and that was what I wanted. Not that I wanted her to come for that, but she's the one person that always protected me. So, and it's crazy. This is what I mean when I say I compartmentalize my life. That happened that Friday. Saturday afternoon, I was on a panel. I was a panelist for this event called Where Wild Women Wander. And basically we was talking about mental health, spiritual health, all of that. And then that afternoon, I was initiated into my sorority. So all this is going on. I've been physically abusive for months, since January of this year. And every task that had ever been given to me, knock it out of the park every time. But I go home and it's that. So I ended up moving in with my parents that Saturday. And they wanted to, my sister, she gave my mom the recording of the phone call. And my mom, I've never felt so seen by my mom in my life. Because it was always tension with me and my mom, always, because I'm the rebellious child. I'm the one fight first, ask questions later. My sister needs their approval for everything. My sister's the type, she goes to the doctor and has a discussion with my parents and then takes the next step. The doctor told me this, I'm going to go do what the doctor told me to do, and then we talk about it afterwards. I don't need your approval to do what's best for me. That's just always been me. That's always been me, always. And so it never really, because both my parents are military, so when you think about it that way, your soldiers have to have your approval to do something. I'm not one of your little soldiers. I might be a no limit soldier when it comes to you, but I'm not. I'm not in the U.S. Army. I'm not a Marine. I'm not in the Air Force. I ain't none of that. But yeah, she wanted to go to the police immediately and was like, "We need to file for a restraining order." Now I know, because I work for the state. I know that you can't do that on the weekend. You have to do it during the week here. So that Monday morning, I went and filed a police report. I listed every single time he's ever put his hands on me. And the cop was like, "Do you want to put a warrant out for him?" And I was like, "No, you don't have to. I just wanted to get out my house." Because that's what I wanted the whole time. I wanted him to leave. But he had nowhere to go. I was his way to work. I was his way to see his son. I was his way to exist. The way to eat. The way to, what I'm saying? Like, I literally was his lifeline. And I didn't feel right leaving him. And that's my son's father. And I don't want to take him away from him, because my son loves his father. But this is not healthy. So what do? I didn't know what to do. I didn't want my son to be in the DCF system here, because I know how that goes. So I didn't call the police, because I knew that every time I called the police, they were going to send a caseworker out. And I didn't want that for my son. I did not want him to do that. So that Monday morning, I went and filed the report. The police officer looked at me and said, "Come back up here tomorrow and come pick up your paperwork so you can file for your TPO. It's a temporary protective order." That Tuesday, my paperwork I called. They said it wasn't done. They said it'd be 3 to 5 business days. I went up there like the cop told me to. It was done. I went straight to the courthouse, filed it for free. They normally would charge for, they were normally charged for the police report. She said, "Don't worry about it." I went to the courthouse, filed it. Took 2 hours to do all the paperwork, filed it. By Friday, I had my protective order. That never happens that fast, ever. And then I had my first hearing that Friday, got a protective order. We had our second hearing, and he had to be there. And I don't know how this happened, but I had the same judge for both hearings. Nobody else had the same judge. So my judge had the police report. He had when I filed the restraining order, well, for the protective order, he had every picture, every clip, every recording, everything. It wasn't new information because he had been given it 2 weeks before. And when we got in the courtroom, he told him, "If you don't stop talking, if you want me to believe that you did not get aggressive with her or did not get violent with her, I suggest you be quiet, because you're not helping your case." As much as he was trying to deflect in that I'm intentionally antagonizing him or triggering him, when at 35 years old, if you don't know how to control yourself, that's on you. If you blame everybody else for how you're behaving, that's a problem. And I didn't know how to have that conversation with my parents, because me and my parents, we didn't talk about boys. We didn't talk about any of that. I just was kind of left in the wind, like, figure it out. That's why I became so hyper independent, and that's how PCOS became a thing, because I figured it out. Just figure it out. And so that day, I had to tell my mom that I had a miscarriage, because she asked me, she said, "How much debt do you have because of him?" And I said, "Mom, he actually was helping financially, because last year I couldn't pay my bills and he helped. And I got behind on my bills and he helped me." And she said, "Well, why were you behind?" I said, "Because I had to take off work." And she said, "For what?" I said, "I had a miscarriage." Parents didn't know I was pregnant. My grandma, she told my mama in the very southern way that she did. She said she had a dream about me swimming with some fish. And I went off and was like, I'm not pregnant. She didn't even have that dream when I was actually pregnant. So how she having that dream now? Blah, blah, blah. I'm even going all like borderline crash out. Like, come to find out I was pregnant. I didn't even know at the time, but I was pregnant. And I ended up losing the baby. And I didn't tell my mom because we had just went through a series of deaths. So my aunt passed. She was my grandmother's sister-in-law. They had her funeral a week later. They sent her body off to Texas that Monday after the funeral. Her husband, my grandmother's brother, went to go see her body shipped off and died that next day. And he and my mom were very close. I had my surgery so that they could remove the baby because it wouldn't pass on its own that next day. So of course, my mom, I know that I had the surgery coming up. My mom does not know. And she calls me to tell me my uncle passed the day before. So I'm like, I can't tell her that. So I kept it a secret. I did. I never told them. I never had that discussion with them. Until that day, I told my mom. And she was like, I'm so sorry. She was like, I'm sorry, I wasn't, emotionally available, because that was a thing for us growing up. My mom wasn't. My mom was a drill sergeant when I was a child. So just imagine this, being in a household with two soldiers, and then you're not even really around them like that because they have to be to work so early. They provided for me and my sister, but they were not emotionally available. But they were doing the best that they could because they didn't know how to be emotionally available because their parents weren't either. So it's and now I have this little boy that is extremely affectionate and extremely loving to her. And I'm like, I don't, because I didn't want a boy. I did not want a boy. And as he's gotten older, it's like, he was just like, this morning, he was like, I love you, Mom. I'm like, I love you too. Like, just out the blue. He's like, Mommy, I want a hug. Give me a hug. I'm like, okay. As far as I remember growing up with my mom, the first time I remember my mama hugging me, like, we're just not affectionate people. Like, I felt like 20, 21, something like that. Somewhere around there. But now that she's retired and now that she has a grandson, she's like super affectionate. But all of that happened here. So having to finally be able to breathe again because she knows the secret. And she's like, it's not a secret anymore that, my son's father was putting his hands on me. Yes, he absolutely was. And I still gave grace in that. And even getting the apologies from my parents. Just all in the last month. This happened August 23rd. It's September 20th? Yeah, 20th. All in the last month. I've gotten the apologies from my parents because they knew that they judged me. And my dad, he was going to say, I've never judged you. He went to say, I've never judged you. He's like, yes, I have. And I'm sorry that I did. He had to correct himself immediately because I think they understood that I ended up in that situation because I didn't feel like I had anywhere to go. Without judgment, without being a problem. And we've been there at the house since then. And I'm truly grateful. Like, my son gets to grow up in a house with his great grandmother. My son gets to see his grandparents every day, and not just once a week, like how it was. When I had my son, it taught me to love myself more and more authentically so that he understood what it's supposed to look like. Not because I don't have time for myself because I have a son now, it's because he needs to see what is appropriate and what is right and not what people say it is, or just because or what people tell you. So I'm grateful that even at 3 years old, he understands. Because he's asked me, he said, Mommy, Daddy's not okay. I said, no, he's not. He said, okay. And he leaves it alone. He said, and he'll ask if he can pray. And I'm like, you sure can. Go ahead. And he'll pray. And he does the same in Jesus' name, amen, that I do. But yeah. I've poured on my son so much that I had to like learn to do that. So every morning before he goes to school, he say, "We're gonna have a good day today. We're gonna be nice. We're gonna listen to teachers. We're gonna use the potty because potty training is no joke. It's horrible. It's horrible." But he's potty trained now, so we don't necessarily have to. But he still says it because he knows he's supposed to use the potty. And then he says, "I'm smart. I'm special. I'm loved. I'm wealthy. I'm healed, and I'm whole. In Jesus' name, amen." He says it every morning. Even if I don't remember to say it, he'll say it on his own. Like when we're walking, he's like, "Mommy, I'm healthy." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm wealthy." I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." And it's like he needs reassurance to make sure like we still here, right? Yep. But it just being here, this is what made me appreciate being here, because if I wasn't here, what was I gonna do? If I was back in Tallahassee, what was I gonna do? If I was anywhere else except Augusta, what was I gonna do? I don't know. I think last year the hardest thing for me was miscarriage, because I felt like God told me I was healed and I lost this baby, and I don't know what's wrong with me, and I don't know why I lost this baby. I don't know what's wrong, and I really, really thought it was a girl. I really want a little girl. But I for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why it happened. And people were saying all the cliche things like, "Oh, God doesn't make any mistakes," and and I don't want to hear that. I feel like it's like people don't mean anything by it, but like when you're in that, it kind of like it feels like it's kind of dismissing it, like God doesn't make any mistakes. So you're telling me that my baby had to die? Is that what you're telling me? And while the person who said it, I know she didn't mean it like that. This is how I felt the moment. You're grieving. But even then, he still like made it clear to me, because I actually was due the day the hurricane hit here last year. Around this time last year, we were, fighting for our lives here in Augusta because we didn't have any resources for Helene. Hurricane Helene hit. And my parents were stuck in their house. We didn't have any water or power at my house. We barely had any food. And to think I would have been in the hospital having a baby while all of this is going on, all the chaos that was going on here. And I also had a second child by a man that, to be honest with you, I was not in love with. I loved him because I'd known him for so long, but I was like, and I'm thankful for a miscarriage now. I wasn't before, but I'm thankful now. Because God made it clear to me. He knows what he's saying. Because even with my son's father, when we were dealing with each other years ago, I had a dream. I was at church in my dream, and my lady looked at me and said, "If you don't leave that man alone, he's going to kill you." And I thought it meant like spiritually, because I found myself easing away from doing church things when we first started talking like that. Like I didn't leave church. Like I was still there for like Bible study sometimes, choir practice, and for service. But like sometimes stuff outside of that, I wasn't there anymore. And I thought that's why she said it in my dream, but that wasn't. I didn't know that it was gonna be physical, like because he physically tried to kill me on several occasions. And I just remember, even like when I think about it, like, dang, God, really don't you know what you're talking about? Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's like he's not just saying stuff to say stuff, like, or like if he tells you not to, have sex before marriage, it's not because he doesn't want you to enjoy the pleasure of sex. It's because there's things that come with that, like soul ties. And that's a whole nother thing you got to break, and then it changes how you look at situations. I remember even looking at situations like, if I don't test drive this man before we get married, I don't want to be with him, because that is sex is very important to me. And I had to like, okay, that's a problem. Like that's a problem. We need to deal with that and really obey. Even when I don't know what to think about myself, God tells me what he thinks about me, and I should believe that, because he doesn't go back on his word. So that yeah, he knows what he's talking about. That's a lot. So my baby is the Enamor Effect, and I teach women how to fall out of love with their trauma and fall in love with their God-given identity. God gave me that back in 2021 after I went through a really dark space with a heartbreak. But in the midst of that, God gave me this business. He gave me this. He would start talking to me about like how people get stuck in certain places, and while we're aging biologically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, we're stuck in them places. So he took me back to my psychology books, and I was looking at my social work books. And I was like, I understand now. I understand. So now he gave me an entire framework. And the word enamor is my framework for my curriculum. And so now I've been in business for about 2 years officially now. I released my devotional earlier this year under the Enamor Effect. And I now have a membership called the Enamor Gang. And basically, every month we have a masterclass, and I teach different skills. So, like for September, I think it was alignment, maybe teaching alignment and aligning yourself to the Word of God. And I don't mean just like living a devout life. That's not what it is. Like literally aligning your mind to what He thinks about you and what He wants for you. Because a lot of times we want things that He don't want for us. Perfect example with my son's father. He didn't want that for me. But that was a decision that I made. But had I paid attention and listened the first time, I wouldn't have been in this situation. So we can avoid so much, heartache and pain and stuff if we just align ourselves to Him. But yeah, that's just one of the examples. So every month we have a masterclass, and it comes with an ebook, and it is $47 a month. Um, Then I also have my signature program that is a 6-month program that will take you through the 6 steps of the Enamor Effect. And yeah, and I'm also working on a new book, so that will be coming soon. So yeah, I got all the things. Got a lot of stuff going on, but it'll all get done. And at some point, I'm going to celebrate it. I do want more children, but I want to do it the right way. I did it my way this time, and God allowed it to happen, and um, I want to do it the right way. He told me I'll have a daughter. He told me to name her Promise. I don't know when she's gonna come, or who her father is, or when he's coming. But I'm 33, so he need to come on. Yeah, he need to come on. If he coming, he need to come on. But yeah, I really believe in that, and I believe that God's placing the right people around me. He's really opened my eyes to who my village is right now, and I'm thankful for that. Even outside of like my family, like my actual friends, because I don't have a best friend, but you show me people that actually really, really care about me, that I'm my family.
Awesome, awesome. And then the very last question, finish the sentence. My testimony is dope because
It always comes full circle.